Well done, and Madam President, that ends the superintendent's report.
Thank you. And before I go on, I do want to tell you that we did meet in executive session discussing personnel and potential litigation items. Item number 5, board action to acknowledge receipt of the treasurer's report for the month of February 2013. See attachment.
So moved.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McGlicko?
Yes.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. Halazinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Kassian?
Yes.
Mr. Kondrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Hearing of citizens, Mr. Murphy?
Good evening. Keith Murphy, 907 Evans Avenue, McKeesport, PA, 15132. Here for various concerns. One, of course, existed in the process of the naming of that school last week. I would encourage everybody to fill these. To say no objection to John McKee being a slaveholder and a slave owner, this is why that became so offensive. You pass that around if you want. Additionally, it was insinuated that I didn't have a problem with Founders Hall. Originally, I thought Founders Hall were the members of this pictured room here. But certainly, you're getting a piece right now of the Founding Fathers. Of the 21 Founding Fathers, 14 were slave owners. Thomas, all men are created equal. Jefferson owned over 200. Took Sally Hemings at 14 years old to Paris. 2 years later, she was pregnant. They had 6 children, 2 didn't survive. So when we look at Founders Hall from a historical perspective, I think we need to educate our children a little bit deeper in terms of what that means. Additionally, I know that Twin Rivers was selected. I would just like to say an addendum for 3 other words. The Bernice Vaughn School, the Twin Rivers School. Bernice Vaughn was a woman who was here for 94 years. Was the first black female school board member here in the city of McKeesport. Executive director of certain things and director of all sorts, but was a community woman and lived 2 blocks away from that school. All I would ask you to do is to consider 3 more words to Twin Rivers so that it has a significant impact for those children who need to know a positive history of people doing positive things in the city of McKeesport. Finally, just 3 questions to the McKeesport Area School Board. Can the board recommend to those being contracted for the multi-million-dollar projects to strongly consider hiring minorities, especially those in the upcoming new school projects? I'm speaking of this new addition that's happening to Founders Hall that may cost us $10 to $12 million. I think in part the notion of inclusivity needs to say that all members of McKeesport should take part in this process. As of now, it's pretty much 100% white who benefit, and they're not even McKeesport white at that. They're not white at that. They're not Javosburg white at that. These are outside whites that have taken our money, taxpayer money, and have executed these contracts. Second, can a community benefits agreement become part of the school district? And Mr. Campbell, you probably can answer that better than anybody, as part of a strategic plan. I know that it has happened in the Hill District with the demolish of the Civic Arena, and the Hill District residents are getting a part of this in terms of designated contracts for minority, etc. And lastly, can the board adopt a policy that rejects nepotism? Now, well, I do have to add one more thing. In that presentation I just seen, with number 1 priority being safety. Certainly I would think that the number 1 priority would be seeing that our children are academically ready. Our graduation rates in McKeesport are down. And I read in the newspaper, it said that shouldn't have been factored into this whole process, but if you don't graduate, what are we here for? So we need to be looking at graduation rates, and then we need to look at that, what we call the black-white achievement gap. Why is it systemically showing that our children that are black are not reaching the standards of proficiency in advanced and always being considered basic, below basic, or special education? These are all issues that we need to confront. These are all issues that are serious for the school district in order for us to become better. So let me encourage you all, and number one, I'd like to applaud y'all for changing that name. But we still have much work to do. And I think that if we make education our number one priority, I think we're on the right track. Thank you. If anybody's interested in holding these things, you can.
All right, we'll move on now to item number 1, board action to approve the minutes of the open agenda meeting.
Madam President, let me make a comment.
Yes.
I don't know if Mr. Murphy, if maybe you were outside when Mr. Holtzman gave this report, but he did mention that they are making adequate progress on their AYP in just about every category. So if you need a copy of this, I can give it to you. They did a great presentation, and I didn't want that overlooked. And the second thing, Mr. Murphy, I saw the second flyer that was passed out by your group, and I took a little offense to that. I mean, I've been working with this board, and this board is a great group here, and we've made some great strides. And some of the wording in the second flyer that was passed out really rubbed me the wrong way. I'm a community guy here. I served in the United States Army.
What part were you offended by?
Well, the leadership part and
Well, the history suggests, and I'll say this, all you have to do is look at the hiring of blacks, minorities in this school district, look at the hiring of contracts of blacks in this school district, and look at the expulsion rate and those being targeted for special education. And if that is not conducive of somebody that is being insensitive, not to mention, we know that this board historically has served a role in terms of selecting family, friends, for jobs that they may not have been qualified for, and eliminated potential black candidates.
I can't account for years past, but this board in the last 3.5 years, we've disagreed many a times, but I feel that the flyer painted us in a picture that if they didn't know us, that they would think something totally different. And people in this room that know me, that watch me in the community center here in this district, it really was insulting to me. So hopefully you and I have each other's phone numbers, we see each other at the gym. I just wish in the future that maybe coming to the Culture of Diversity meeting, which I believe you were at today. I think I was the chairman of that committee for 2 years, and we put you on that. I asked you to come on that committee. I got your address. You're always welcome to come there. I just hope we have a dialect that we can talk together and talk these things through, and do it in a public forum as well. But it just, the flyer, and you and I can go over that, at the gym perhaps some evening when we see each other. But there were some things there that really rubbed me the wrong way. And that's all. Thank you.
Madam President, I'd like to also make a statement. Mr. Murphy, in this flyer it says, "What about Founders Hall?" Was that the naming of the Founders Hall that you were questioning, like when it was named back?
My original notion was that Founders Hall was indicative of these folks that are on the wall. That was my feeling. It was never my feeling that Founders Hall was related to those founding fathers of the U.S. of A. or of America, or what we call, So if it was the founding fathers of history of America, then that is very offensive.
Okay.
At least to the black community.
Okay, well this is why I brought this up. I think back in the day when it was somewhat of a contest for the naming of Founders Hall. And I think that a young African-American gentleman named Jeremy Acey was recognized for and publicized in the Daily News for his report on why he thought it should be named Founders Hall. And so I would say you're contradicting a little bit about the naming of it, and if it was was an issue, it should have been an issue back then when it came to face as opposed to now after the fact.
Again, my interpretation of Founders Hall was that because that kid attended this school, that these were the membership of saying we're going to commemorate them through naming the school after them. Now, good education says, at least for me, when children that I teach, I say, listen, research that history. Anything I tell them, I say, don't take it at face value just because I say it well. Research it. It didn't take me a lot of research to find out that 14 of 21 of those were slaveholders. It didn't take that much. John Hancock, Benjamin Franklin, all names that are common in the history classes that we teach, but we don't talk about that what we call the dirty little secret, slavery, and how they endorsed and profited from it. So if the school district is serious, they should have researched that whole concept. If the concept was the founding fathers of America, somebody on this school board should have said, well, do you know that you as an African American, if this was 1776, you'd be in them chains that I just passed around. But he didn't get that information. So if it was saying it was creative, and he doesn't know his history, which a lot of black folks don't know their history.
Very true.
So I'm saying, history is a teachable moment if we take advantage of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item number 1, board action to approve the minutes of the open agenda meeting of February 20th, 2013, and regular meeting of February 27th, 2013. See attachment.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Midlico?
Yes.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. Halazinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Cassian?
Yes.
Mr. Kondrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Maxson?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item number 2, board action to approve the list of bills. See attachment.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Midlico?
Yes.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. Halazinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Cassian?
Yes.
Mr. Kondrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Maxson?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item number 3, board action to approve property tax refunds as presented. See attachment.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Midlico?
Yes.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. Halazinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller? Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Cassian?
Yes.
Mr. Kondrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Maxson?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item number 4, board action to approve the board meeting calendar for 2013, 2014. See attachment.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Midlico?
Yes.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. Halazinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Cassian?
Yes.
Mr. Kondrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Maxson?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item number 5, board action to approve the following field trips. A, robotics to Baltimore, Maryland on April 11th through the 13th, 2013. And B, Skills USA to state competition in Hershey, PA on April 3rd through the 5th, 2013. See attachments.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to say that the robotics to Baltimore, Maryland, we have 10 students who have qualified and are going to be going with 2 chaperones from the district, as well as carfuls of parents. And that is paid for out of the Pennsylvania Department of Education's grant that we have with our vocational technical department. And B, Skills USA state competition to Hershey. We have 8 students who have qualified for that, and we have 2 advisors that would like to attend with them. Paid for out of the Perkins grant.
Congratulations to all of those students and best of luck as they move on. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Midlico?
Yes.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. Halazinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Cassian?
Yes.
Mr. Kondrowski? Mrs. Maxson?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item number 6, board action to approve the extended school year ESY program for qualifying special education students from July 1st, 2013 through July 25th, 2013, Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McGlicko?
Yes.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. Malazinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Kasan?
Yes.
Mr. Kondrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item number 7, board action to approve the formation of an indoor color guard at the middle school level. See attachment.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McGlicko?
Yes.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. Malazinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Kasan?
Yes.
Mr. Kondrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item number 8, board action to approve funding in the amount of $4,000 for chaperones and security for the 2013 prom. See attachment.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam President, I have just one comment that there's a lot of new familiar faces, but there's some faces here I haven't seen. Just to let them know when it says see attachment, we do have the attachments over there on the desk. If anybody would like to see them, they're there before the meeting. So just wanted to make that public
Thank you.
announcement.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McGlicko?
Yes.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. Malazinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Kasan?
Yes.
Mr. Kondrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item number 9, board action to approve parking at McKeesport Area High School during the 54th Annual International Village to be held August 13th, 14th, and 15th, 2013. The village will be open from 3 o'clock p.m. through 11:30 p.m. See attachment.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McGlicko?
Yes.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. Malazinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Kasan?
Yes.
Mr. Kondrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item number 10, first reading of the following board policies. Number 248, pupils, unlawful harassment. Number 348, employees, unlawful harassment. See attachments.
So moved.
Second.
There's no motion, this is just first reading. Any discussion? Item number 11, board action to approve the starting and dismissal times for the 2013-2014 school year as presented. See attachment.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I'll point out those starting times. Due to the restructuring, the realignment for next school year, the starting times are going to vary a little bit from what they've traditionally been. East End Academy will remain the same, with a 7 o'clock to 1:40. The high school, students will start arriving here at 7 o'clock, and student dismissal 2:35, similar to what it is right now. Founders Hall's a bit of a change. Students start arriving at 8:20, student dismissal at 3 o'clock. And you have Francis McClure, which will be 8:25 student arrival, student dismissal 3:15. And you have Francis McClure arrival at 9 o'clock and student dismissal at 3:40.
Once again, that's intermediate.
Difference in intermediate and the primary, that's correct. So
And the Twin Rivers will follow the course.
that's correct. And everything, this will be publicized, this will be put out in a variety of publications as we move on. But this is what we're agreeing to tonight, is actually the change in time schedules based on the primary and intermediate setup.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. McGlicko?
Yes.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. Malazinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Kasan?
Yes.
Mr. Kondrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item number 12, board action to approve 10 o'clock a.m. starts for all high school students in order to facilitate Keystone testing, with the exception of the following. Monday, May 13th, Algebra 1 students. Tuesday, May 14th, English Literature students. Wednesday, May 15th, Biology students. See attachment.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, if I can explain that a little bit, the high school has traditionally given PSSA testing in grade 11, and there has been an altered schedule with only 11th grade students coming in on testing days to provide the best testing atmosphere possible during the testing windows. It is now switched to Keystone exams, and the Keystone exams have proven to be much more challenging as far as scheduling because of the variety of testing. And there'll be approximately 700 students in 3 different courses taking exams during this window. And this delayed start will enable the students to come in, be in better testing environments with proctors in better scenarios for the students. And this is requested by the high school administration, and it's a plan that I would recommend as well.
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McGlicko?
Yes.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. Holozinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller? Yes. Mrs. Cassan?
Yes.
Mr. Kondrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Maxson?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item number 13, board action to authorize the submission of Plan Pond Parts D and E for Founders Hall.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McGlicko?
Yes.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. Holozinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Cassan?
Yes.
Mr.